understand what you're doing, but I got this. If I fail, I will learn from that experience. And what I'm doing right now is very, very brave. And I'm so proud of it. So it's like noticing it, responding, like acknowledging, responding to that, and giving yourself a pep talk. And practice makes perfect, right? It's not going to be perfect right away. It's not going to work every time, but every time you notice this inner critic, it will make a huge difference in your progress.
Welcome back to Systems with Laura, the podcast where we explore the structures, habits, and processes behind successful entrepreneurs, creators, and leaders. This episode of Systems with Laura is brought to you by Proprium, business workflow and automation agency. If you're building a service-based business and you're overwhelmed by operations, automations, or choosing the right tools, this is exactly what Proprium helps with. Proprium builds systems that help you save time, reduce repetitive work, and scale without chaos. Learn more at proprium.agency. Today, I'm excited to welcome Diana Bukowska, actor, educator, public speaking coach, and co-founder of the LIMELIGHT HUB, one of Silicon Valley's leading acting-based communication training organizations. Diana helps professionals and teams build confidence and speak with impact by combining acting tools with communication systems. Her approach is shaped by her personal journey from Poland to the United States, where she rebuilt her voice, literally and figuratively, in a new language and culture. So, in this episode, we dive deep into the systems behind speaking with presence, how she designs transformative workshops, and the processes she uses to help international professionals overcome fear, build confidence, and communicate with authenticity. Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for saying yes. I think this is going to be interesting.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Perfect. So I, of course, will start with your, journey related to the cultural differences, your decision to move to the U.S., and basically, tell us a little bit about how it felt when you first moved from Poland, and how did the last 3 years look like for you?
Oof. So let me start from the beginning. I used to work as an actor in Poland in theater and TV. I had a pretty stable job. And then I met my husband. And he used to work for Apple from London, and he was about to transfer to the US. But at the beginning of our relationship, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay in Poland. I have a stable job here. I'm not willing to move. But then I fell in love. So I was like, okay, I'm going to the US. Let's try. And it was one of the most challenging experiences of my life. I used to study English in Poland for 12 years, so I was pretty fluent. But when I moved here, I lost my confidence. I was so afraid of speaking in English. I was so hard on myself. I was punishing myself for every mistake I made in English. And I felt lost and I felt so lonely because I didn't have friends here. I didn't know where to buy shoes. I didn't know where to go to get great coffee. So I had to figure everything out from scratch. And it was super challenging. But then at some point, I realized, okay, I need to get back to work. So I started taking classes at ACT. It's an acting school in San Francisco Bay Area. And that's how I got my confidence back, because I used acting tools I knew from Poland, from the industry in Poland, and then started using them in English. And I realized that the core of it is not perfect English. The core of it is the delivery, is the connection with the audience, is being authentic. It's just being yourself. And that gave me this beautiful power to rebuild my confidence. And then a couple of years later, started my own business.
So, they always say there are a few things in life that you can do that's like textbook challenging life experiences. So, one of them is moving to another country, continent, basically, and then becoming an entrepreneur. So, how do you kind of adjust to the entrepreneur life? You've done this huge change, which is cultural life change, and now you started a company, if I'm not mistaken, this year, March.
Mm-hmm.
So how has that journey been for you so far?
So I found my talent agency here. I used to work as an actor a little bit here in the US. And at some point, even in Poland, they started burning out because it's constantly looking for auditions. It's constantly looking for a job, like waiting for this approval from others to say, okay, you can participate in my project. But before that, you need to record a self tape that takes a couple of hours. So it's insane how hard looking for a job in acting industry is. And in Poland, it was pretty easy because I had a stable job in a TV show and in theater. But when I moved here, I had to start from scratch, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do it again. It was so tiring. And at some point, I met my business partner, Yulia, and she goes, Diana, you have an experience with leading acting workshops. I have an experience with leading acting workshops in the US. How about creating something together? First of all, she wanted to just ask me about the reality of looking for a job as an actor in the Bay Area because she's an actor too. And I told her everything. I told her, like, it's very hard. It's even more challenging because I have an accent, right? So I have less opportunities than people who have no accents, which is okay and normal. But at some point, people started to encourage me to reduce my accent completely. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I like my accent. I don't want to change it. I'm proud of my accent. So I just didn't want to do that. So we came up with an idea of creating a space for people to practice their delivery, to just really start enjoying speaking publicly, because that's what we did as actors for many many years. So that's why we came up with this idea of creating something for people that could help them release the tension, that could help them enjoying being on stage, that could help them with their speeches, how to use storytelling in their speeches. And that's what we were doing in acting for many years. So uh, that's how it was born, just from passion and the mission driven statements about giving people their voices back.
So that sounds to me amazing, and I'm very biased because I also have an accent. I work with international audience. I am in Croatia. I am not living abroad, so I didn't have that challenge. But I understand how it can kind of affect your self-esteem, And I had this prejudice, let's say, before I started working with global clients, that they're gonna maybe think that I'm, less worth if I have an accent or anything like that. So how do you cope with that? How did you accept that accent, and how did you incorporate that into even helping other people just be themselves, basically, and not see that as an obstacle?
Yeah, at the beginning of my journey, I was like, I need to prove myself because I have an accent, right? I need to show everyone that I'm super professional. I need to show everyone that I know everything because I really I was so anxious inside. But when I started working in acting again, taking acting classes, getting back to my world, I realized that it's not about accent at all. You can have whatever accent you want. And as long as people understand you, that's totally fine, right? And I started being kind to myself. And instead of being hard and punishing myself for every mistake, I was like, Diana, you moved to a different country. You have two amazing experiences on your plate right now, living in Poland and living in the US. You have amazing background you can use in a different country, and you can just share your knowledge with other people. So instead of looking at the things I don't have, I started looking at the things I have and the assets I have because I moved from Poland to a different country and that I'm bilingual, right? So instead of when I work with people, we start with acceptance. We start with being kind to ourselves. And a lot of people, when they speak publicly, they're so anxious, not because they don't know their presentation, but sometimes it's just because they feel and they think they're not enough. So when I work with people, I don't work only with the script and the pitch deck or whatever. I work with the mind, the false beliefs. I work with their bodies to release the tension, to really shake off the unnecessary tension in their body because it makes a huge difference. And then we work with the storytelling and the script as well, and the delivery. And the delivery is another part, right? How to deliver their message that so it lands, so it has the impact you want it to have. So a lot of different categories I focus on when I work with people, because public speaking is not only about perfect presentation slides, it's about all of the things. That it's about your mind, your body, and your delivery.
So, do you have sort of an assessment before you start working with somebody to identify the things that they might think are their gaps or their limiting beliefs or anything like that? How do you structure that approach? How do you what's your framework, I would even say, even though it's tailored to each person, but how do you start? What do you do?
It depends if I work with a group of people or if I work with one on one. If it's one on one coaching, I just have a 30-minute conversation with that person, asking tons of questions about their experience, about the way they feel before, during, and after public speaking, about their preparation, about their approach, about their feelings around public speaking. So I just need to know as much as possible so I can tailor my tools to the needs of this person. And I don't truly believe that one size fits all, especially in public speaking. Some people have more experience, some people have less experience, some people need more sessions, so people need like 2 sessions because they really just want to refine their pitch, right? So it starts with like 30-minute conversation, and then based on that, I take the tools from my toolbox and say, okay, that's going to work for this person. And that's how I create that personalized coaching. But with the groups, I usually talk to a person that organizes the workshop to get to know more about people's needs in general. Like, what's their field they're working in? What's their need? What do they want to focus on? Do they want to do more improv exercises to just make it more like team building experience and public speaking? Or maybe it's just pure public speaking and standing in front of others and practicing. So, yeah, the core is to really understand the need and then fitting my tools into the person's stories.
So, how did you come up with that? Was that were those the steps that you used on yourself? Were those the steps that you learned in the acting classes? How did this blend come upon? Because this sounds to me like, business consulting plus psychology plus acting plus communication plus PR. It's this perfect blend of multidisciplinary things that you need to overcome, certain fears, basically. And who are the people that usually work with you? What's the, target audience?
Mm-hmm. So let me get back to this multi-divert, like all of the different aspects I cover. As an actor, you need to know a lot about psychology because you're playing a character that can be some like had some kind of psychological problem. So even at acting school, we had one subject that it was all about psychology to really understand the mind of the people we're going to play. So that's one thing. But I'm also very interested in trauma informed work. I work as a peer educator at City College where I run workshops on healthy relationships and strategies for living an abusive relationship and all that stuff, trauma informed work. And also, as an actor, you need to be very empathetic to really understand people you're gonna play, right? So I think all these things, and I used to conduct group workshops for people of all ages. I used to conduct acting workshops for 3 years olds. I used to conduct acting workshops for adults and theater instructors. I used to conduct workshops for teenagers, right? So every group was completely different. So I needed to base my program on their experience because there's no point in creating a program for everyone, right? It never works. So that's why my approach is like this. I really want to understand the need first, and then I adjust my program to that. And what was your second question?
Who is the target audience currently?
We started with a broad audience, just people who are afraid of public speaking. So I used to train a person from Google that was a technical lead at one of the in one of the teams. It was financial, I think. I used to train a startup founder. I used to train a mental health coach, life coach. So people from different industries, but I really, really loved working with startup founders. So right now I'm interviewing a lot of startup founders and I'm joining a lot of events to really understand the pain points of startup founders because I've seen many brilliant people on stage pitching to investors and they couldn't deliver their idea in a way that was appealing, in a way that could attract the people's attention. And they had amazing products, but they couldn't deliver it. And what I know now, when investors invest in the product, they don't only invest in the product, but in the person as well. So if there's no connection between you and the investor, it's probably not going to happen. And to have this real connection, you need to feel authentic, right? You need to feel confident to present your idea. And maybe it's a cultural thing, or maybe it's just my thing. I'll ask you. But in the US, there's no room for doubts. You need to be 100% sure about your product. If people see some doubts, they will not invest in you. They'll not invest their time in you. So I learned in the US that the confidence is a must have to move forward. In Poland, being humble is very, very important. So, for example, I don't necessarily want to say I'm the best of the best in the field, because maybe it's not something I should say, because I need to be humble, right? It's very, very important. But in the US, saying I'm the best in the field, I can do it, I'm definitely sure what I'm doing right now, is like one of the biggest challenges for people to understand, especially if they have different backgrounds, they're from different countries. It was hard for me as a Polish person.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's a mentality, cultural type of thing because, and this is my perception. I don't want to speak like for whole Croatia or anything like that, because this is just my experience. And what I've noticed is that if you say I'm an expert at this, you're gonna be doubted. It's gonna be like, who does she think she is to say that? Like,
Exactly.
you have to have this proof and etc. And I think that leads people into this educational circle of I'm never good enough. I have to have a PhD in everything I do. I have to collect certificates and all of that. And I was so sure, for example, when I finished university, I got my master's degree. I basically jumped into entrepreneurship right after that. And I had that like, will they work with me, etc. And then when you start communicating with people, and you probably notice that they don't care, like they're gonna talk to you if you click, and if you can solve their problem, they're gonna work with you, whether it's Croatia, US, it really doesn't matter. But those assumptions kind of keep you with the imposter syndrome, so you don't do stuff. So I challenged those and I overcame them. But I see a lot of my friends and people who start their businesses like think about that, and then they're very much afraid to show up on social media, etc. And to be honest, it took me 7+ years to even start talking on the Croatian market about my offer in the similar way I do when it comes to my clients from America, Australia, Canada, because I don't have a problem saying to an American I am an expert at transforming digital processes, because I have 400 projects behind me and I'm fine with that. Took me a while to do so with Croatia, and only when I had certificates, when I became a vetted ClickUp consultant, when I partnered with HubSpot, when I started working with SmartSuite and all of that, where I was a vetted consultant, I kind of got the bravery to exit there. Does that make sense? And it's
Yeah,
so
that makes
silly.
a lot of
What
sense.
When we're on that topic, it's so silly to me because I was the same person. I had that knowledge for years. I only got those after years of working on those projects. And the fun part is I was hired without them every time prior to that. Now it just complements it. So I think you're correct. And I feel that with my American clients, they can determine in 2 minutes of conversation when we meet if they want to work with me or not. They don't care about references, previous projects, or anything like that. I have a feeling that the way you present yourself plays a role, because if you doubt yourself, just like you said, you're not going to show up. And since I don't doubt myself, since I do have experience and I can show you the projects, I have case studies, you can feel that. So I think it takes time to build. But what when you don't have that yet? What do you do? How do you help startup founders? Especially now it's very popular, the pre-revenue
Mm.
pre-revenue startup founders. How do you help them?
So, what I usually do, I do a lot of brainstorming and I do a lot of free write activities. So I ask a good question. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm asking a question about their false beliefs about themselves. And one of the exercises I truly love working, and that's one of the first exercises I use at the beginning of the workshop. I do working with inner critic. So the first question I ask, how does it sound like, your inner critic? What does it usually say? Then we move to the second part. What would you say to a friend coming to you saying exactly these things? Like, I think I'm not enough. I'm sure I'll screw it up. I think this imposter syndrome, like people will think I'm a fraud, right? And then they write their answer down. It's usually very beautiful what they come up with. It's full of, it's not looking for solutions for their friend, like take a pause here or contact this person. It's about validating their feelings. So they validate their feelings, like themselves. And it's very, very beautiful what they come up with, like sending a lot of support to themselves, like really being so kind to themselves. And then I'm like, for the purpose of the training with me, try to be this person to yourself. Try to be so kind to yourself. Try imagine that this friend is you. So then we go through the part when we try to respond to this inner critic. So I have like a very, very, very easy framework. We first try to find a name for this inner critic. It can be silly. It can my inner critic is a potato, right? Silly name. And then responding to that voice. So what I usually say is like, potato, I can see you. I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to protect me, right? You think I'm going through a there's a threat in the air, right? You need to protect me from. So I understand what you're doing, but I got this. If I fail, I will learn from that experience. And what I'm doing right now is very, very brave. And I'm so proud of it. So it's like noticing it, responding, like acknowledging, responding to that, and giving yourself a pep talk. And practice makes perfect, right? It's not going to be perfect right away. It's not going to work every time. But every time you notice this inner critic, it will make a huge difference in your progress later on. So that's one of the exercises I use at the beginning to work with the false beliefs people have about themselves.
I love that because I learned in many many years of therapy, and I'm really always say to people, you have to have a lawyer, an accountant, and a therapist if you're going to be an entrepreneur. Like those three are a must have, because this is like you're really going through a huge self development. You're facing all of your fears, like you have in public speaking, they're instant related to that engagement that you have. But with entrepreneurship, and you know this yourself probably very well, every day is a self, you know, I don't know the best word for this, but like you have to improve yourself, because the level to which you improve yourself, your company is going to grow. Until that company is outside of your scope of influence, related to you as the person and your identity, until that business becomes a business and you're still, you know, tied to it as a founder and you're the one doing most of the work, that's going to be something that's true. And I feel like your brain is just, you know, used to a lion attacking you in the you know, woods and stuff, and basically it's gonna try to protect you. And sending an email can make you feel that fear just as much as public speaking or anything else, and it's not a real fear. So I try to do that in a similar way. I try to tell myself like, okay, what are you afraid of? Like, stop for a second and be like, are you just afraid? Is this something, you know? And it kind of helps, especially what you said, to talk to yourself as if you're another person for a few moments, to disarm the signal of fear, right? How did you learn
Mm,
that? How did you get to that point?
I think it was in therapy and at acting school, responding to the inner critic. Because when you are an artist and you're on stage in front of thousands of people, you should just go for it. Because if you're holding yourself back, your performance will be affected, right? So I needed to accept the part of the stress. For example, when I work with people, I'm not like, okay, right now I'll take your stress and throw it away. And it's going to be perfect. What I teach people is to accept it and work with it. Because the worst thing you can do is pretending that there's no stress, because your body like hits the wall, right? And you're trying to push the wall and then everything is shaking. But when you're like accepting your stress, you can move forward. And when I work with people, I teach them a lot of breathing exercises. I teach them warming up their oral apparatus, especially non-native English speakers, because I use completely different words and different muscles when I speak in Polish, right? So again, we are focusing on the things we can control. We can control our warm up. We can control our stress release before the presentation. We can control the presentation itself, like having the bullet points, right? If I get lost, if I get the brain fog, I know what I'm going through right now. I know where I'm going with my speech. I can look at the piece of paper. I can have a piece of paper in my pocket and say, okay, when I'm lost, I have it. I have the cheat sheet. So, and then we can control the technical aspect. Not always, but you can do a checkup before. You can go on stage 5 minutes before and feel that this space belongs to you, right? You can just give yourself time to just stand on stage when the room is empty, to feel that you know this space. So when you're doing it for the second time, going on stage for the second time when the room is full of people, you feel a bit better. So there are so many tools you can do to really take care of yourself, because sometimes people don't think about all of these different aspects of public speaking. They're focusing on their script, and when they're on stage, they're lost because they're so nervous that they have the brain fog and they can't go forward with their speech, and their script is not working because they don't remember anything from their script. So that's why when I work with people, we are focusing on the things they really can control and on the things that they can make them feel more comfortable in the space and more comfortable while public speaking. But it will never be 100% comfortable, especially at the beginning.
So I can relate to that because d- now I don't, but I do mostly online. But I used to do a lot of public speaking before the pandemic and everything. Hopefully, I'll do more public speaking next year. But basically, I remember what helped me is one of the things that you said, and I want to emphasize that to the audience that's going to listen to us. For example, entering the room few days before, an hour before, just to feel it. I didn't know it had that much of an impact, but it made the unknown known. So you were in the room already. It's not that scary. It's not the first time. You're not gonna fall down at something. You're not gonna, like, there are no obstacles. You can sit anywhere. You can see how it looks. You can, to me, it helps to, this is silly, but like to know where the exit is. Because then I'm like, whatever happens, you're gonna know where to leave. And then I don't need the exit, if that makes sense. So tricking yourself a little bit kind of helps, definitely. And the other thing that you mentioned related to, it becomes easier. For example, I don't anymore, after 10 plus years of public speaking, I don't have the stage fright before. So to me, it happens, I enter the stage, and the first like minutes I start panicking when I see the full audience, right? So I spoke in front of 100, 500 people. That's my 500 was my biggest audience. And I remember like my heart started pounding. And what helped me was basically I just took a breath and I said to everybody, so, I have stage fright, so we're going to need a minute before we can continue. And everybody started like laughing, not mocking, but they were like with me. And I was like, we're going to get through this. I'm just going to breathe in a little bit. And I just took a deep breath into the microphone. I just started speaking. Nobody remembers that moment. I remember that moment. And the other thing that I also noticed, we know when we take big breaks in speaking. So, like, if I take a deep breath, or it takes me 30 seconds to like continue talking before I, since we're bilingual, before I translate to English and all of that, you always think, oh my god, they noticed, they saw it, they I'm a failure and stuff like that. Nobody sees it, especially when you see recordings of yourself. Not noticeable at all. So do you have like a list of those,
Yes,
that
that's
you
covered so many different things I use in my trainings. The last one was about making bold mistakes on stage. There is a golden
you
rule.
also have to tell us some mistakes you did.
One of the best examples, of course, brain fogging, sure, mixing up the script. That's another one. But I love the example of my friend. We had a show together, and he forgot to put his costume on. And he was just so confident going on stage without his costume, like nothing happened, and nobody could tell. Nobody. We were laughing hard after that. I'm like, where was your costume? I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But then I was talking to people, nobody could tell because he was so confident. So that's the first rule. If you're making a mistake, that is, that can be a mistake that potentially would not be noticed, just don't over explain it. Just move forward. Right? I remember having a presentation for schools the other day, and I had some issues with my clicker. I went to a slide that was not in the right order, but I just ran the activity from the slide and I got back to what I was doing before. nobody could tell, like nobody could spot the mistake. But if you can't, for example, if you're too stressed and you know that you need some kind of like a break or take a sip of water, be okay with that. It makes you authentic. People relate to you because they've been there. Speaking publicly is nerve-wracking. Everybody knows that. So it's, again, being brave enough to say, okay, I made a mistake, let's move on. Or I remember changing my batteries in my microport on stage because they just died. And I was like using my voice, like I projected my voice and I, worked on the batteries and then I moved forward. So they were like, oh, wow, that was cool. She was not, falling behind. It was not nerve-wracking experience for her, but it was something normal that happens. So again, accepting the mistakes, accepting not being perfect. Just perfectionism can kill your performance. When I had fantastic workshop with one of the directors, and she told us a lot about do the worst you can. Like go on stage and do it in the worst possible way. And when we got this information, we did the best because we had no pressure. We were like, I'm going to have fun now. Nobody's going to judge me. So this approach, and when I work with people, I'm like, treat it as a rehearsal. Every performance is a rehearsal because you're learning from every performance, right? And this pressure we're creating sometimes on ourselves kills the performance. So that's another thing. You mentioned that you get very stressed on when you're in front of people. Like that's when it hits. The stress hits. So there's a great, amazing exercise for actors with active verbs. Active verbs and intentions work like this. I'm not focusing on myself, but I'm focusing on the audience, which means that if my intention is to energize the audience, for example, I think about the audience and the goal. So I don't think about myself. I don't think about what should I do with my hands. I don't think about am I loud enough? I'm just focusing on the audience. And that's a great strategy I use to help people understand it's not about them at all. It's about their message and their audience. So that changes the focus from themselves to the audience. And I really love this tool.
I think that's amazing. I need to test it definitely. Because when you focus on yourself, you just think about, oh my God, my hands are, sweaty. What if this? What if I look like this? What if that? And then, like you said, if you focus on the audience, you're going to be like, which value do they want? How are they, do they like this? Do I do something else, etc. I really think that what took me years to understand, because I was focusing on myself and all the mistakes I could make, is that the audience is there because they want to hear from you, and we all, when I just started doing that, when I started facilitating workshops and all of that, I would think, what will I do wrong? Will they think I'm not an expert? Am I a fraud? Stuff like that. What if they know more? What if somebody raises their hand and goes like, you are not, don't say that. You don't know what you're saying and stuff like that. And then I realized basically they decided to visit the workshop or the speech or the panel or whatever. If somebody even raises their hand, they just want to be heard. They don't care about you. They just want to say what they want to say, and you can engage them. If today's episode makes you realize your tools are not supporting your business, Proprium builds systems in tools like Airtable, SmartSuite, ClickUp, HubSpot, Make, Zapier, and many more. Proprium's team maps your processes, builds your workflows, automates your tasks, and trains your team. If you want systems done properly, visit proprium.agency. So I had that happen, not that rudely, that I was expecting. And then I just asked the person, and I was like, so that frustrates you? And they were like, yes. And I'm like, well, tell us more about that. Maybe somebody has a similar experience. And it turned into this like effort of the audience and me basically solving their issue, and they left really happy. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's one of the things I feared the most, and I figured it out. So like, how do you help speakers with those situations?
At the beginning of my acting journey, I was so scared of the audience because when I got to acting, it was all about creating worlds, right? That could be anyone. I created my imaginary worlds, and that was all about acting for me. But then it turned out that it's for other people. It's not about your own world and your own imagination. It's about opening it to your audience, right? And that was very scary. So at some point, I realized two things, and I use it in my trainings too. First of all, there's going to be all of kinds of the people in the room. Some of them have a very, very bad day and they go through shit at home. Some of them will be very engaged because they're so interested in your topic. Some of them know more than you, and that's totally okay too, right? Some of them just don't care about the topic because it's boring to them because they're not interested. Some of them will be eating. Some of them will be looking at their phone because they're super busy and they need to look at their phone. And some of them will be looking at you and nodding. So, what I learned, you can't read people's minds. Sometimes when I'm focused, I have like a poker face. I'm just listening. I'm just into somebody's story, but I have a poker face. And people can think, oh my God, she's so bored. Oh my God, she's so angry. And sometimes people come to me and say, Diana, are you okay? Is everything good? I'm like, yeah, I was just listening to you. But I had the poker face, right?
Well, I do have to say, to be fair, that's the Eastern European Slavic face. That's just our face. you know?
Right. And that's when we are brainstorming on it and people in the room who go through different situations, we realize at the end of the brainstorm that we can't control it.
Yeah.
What we can control is doing our best with the delivery. Is what makes me feel great is like having this eye contact with people and just being and exchanging energies. It's one of the most beautiful things in acting and in public speaking in general, having this energy exchange. But it's hard to really get back to your story. Sometimes it's hard to stop judging yourself. It's hard to not look at their faces in a way like, oh my God, they're so bored. It just takes practice. Just it's not going to happen right away, but really getting back to the things you can control releases a lot of tension.
Yeah. And like you said, you can't read people's minds because, somebody could be having a bad day and you're going to think, wow, they really don't like me. And they could have a really bad day and it's not at all related to you. To me, it helped when I started doing consulting one on one. And it was much different than it is with, group facilitating group workshops and stuff like that. And you really have to figure out, the energy of the person. If we're going to do some sort of changes in their business, I have to figure out, are they ready for that today? I have to be at my best. I have to come with a smile and I really have to be there for them because this is about them. So that's to me, just like acting seems to be more of an art form than it is a skill that you can learn. So you probably have some predisposition, like as a type of character you are for that, but there are also tons of things that you can learn. That doesn't mean other people can't use that same talent. So like, what's the blend there? What do you see as this was me, as Diana, and this is what I learned throughout life?
I was super shy and anxious kid, and acting helped me open up.
There we
And I
go.
don't think
Yeah.
is and when you see great speakers on stage, ask them, "What's your experience in public speaking?" And they'll probably tell you, "Yeah, sure, I've done it many, many times."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like with driving a car. You're not the best driver right away, right? You need to learn. It's the same with public speaking.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think that, oh my God, we need to be perfect on stage because people are looking at us. You're not a surgeon. You're just presenting your thing. If you make a mistake, nobody dies. So that's one thing I teach people like,
That's the good news. Not for surgeons, but for us service providers.
right? So you can just test it out and try it out. And if you're afraid of trying it out, if you're like holding back, people will see it. So instead of just give it a shot. You have nothing
Yeah.
to lose. If you don't do it, you don't do it and you don't gain anything. But if you do it, you can gain something out of it, or you can make a mistake and gain nothing. Still,
Yeah.
there's more possibility that you'll gain something when you're trying. So putting in this way is very, very helpful. And it's all about the skill. It's all about the skill. Like
I,
every skill, you need to learn how to do that.
I would add, like, the people who you are afraid will judge you. At the end of the day, they could potentially judge you. I get judged all the time and all of that. But then when I do something that kind of shows more success, then they kind of congratulate me and they're like, oh, we always knew you're going to do this or that. So that opinion kind of is wishy-washy and it can change from minute to minute. You could be loved, you could be not loved. It's just what you think about yourself, and I think that kind of ties it back to why the foundation of what you do is that let's first talk about the imposter, then let's start with figuring it out. I do feel that that's why it's successful. So, how mm, I don't know how to form this question, but like how many workshops, or either how many, I would say, clients you've changed since March. What is the process so far?
Let me get back to this question in a second, but I wanted to say one more thing about the performance and imposter syndrome and the perfectionism. People will forget about you in an hour or two after the performance.
Yeah,
So that's the thing. They have their own lives. You're not going to stay with them forever. You can impact their lives if the pitch is very good or if the speech is very good. But if you make a mistake, nobody's going to remember that
yep.
tomorrow or in 2 days. And that's very um, freeing aspect of working as a public speaking coach, that just making people realize that they're not in the center of the world and nobody's going to remember them
And
and
that's
their
so
mistakes.
freeing. That's insanely freeing. Yeah. I love the you're not the main character vibe, if that makes sense, because the responsibility just falls off your shoulders, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to talk about it here, I wanted to talk about here is not serving people, but by all costs. You're there to share. You're there to have a great time. And if people take it, they take it. If people don't take it, they don't take it. But what you can control, again, is you having fun on stage and performing what you want to perform. And that's it. There's no rocket science behind it. So again, I used to be like, oh, I need to do my best. I need to give them all I have. No, you're there to exchange the energy, right? You're there to give what you want to give them. And then their opinions can be different. And again, looking at their opinions, some people have different opinions on everything. Some people like tomatoes, some people don't like tomatoes. It's the same with public speaking. Some people love some speakers, some people hate them. The same with actors, right? And it's all very it starts with C, the word. It People like have different opinions on the same thing, so we shouldn't listen to every single opinion. Of course, we need to ask for feedback if we really want to get the feedback and not look at the facial expressions only. But again, do whatever you want to do because you're the most important person on stage. So if someone gives you feedback like I didn't like it, and that's it, you know that it's not a great person to listen to. But if someone gives you more like constructive feedback, you know that maybe you could incorporate it in your next speech. So that's what I wanted to add to this part.
Let me just add before we skip to the next topic. I also want to emphasize from the position of a person in audience. There are some speakers I would find annoying because of their voice, anything else, So it could be a small detail. It could be they reminded me of somebody that I particularly don't like, in my personal life or anything like that. Or I didn't like their voice or certain things there. And then 5 years later, fast forward, I hear them again and I'm like, wow, I didn't see that before. So I think it's also about where you are in your journey as an entrepreneur, as a person in the audience, however you are receiving that message, if that makes sense. Like 15 years ago, I wouldn't need some sort of entrepreneurship keynote to be necessarily something I'm interested in because I wasn't an entrepreneur then, right? But now I would look at it and be like, wow. So it really depends. I think that's very important for people to understand that, like you said, is not all about you, but it's also not your responsibility of how it will be perceived.
No, not at all, because people have different opinions and you can't control it at all. You can't control people's opinions.
No. And you can just be sure that you're respectful, that you know what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, that go to your bed and be like, I did what I wanted to say. I didn't hurt anybody. I really gave value. And that's it. Yeah.
And I know there's the question I need to answer, but before that, how you treat yourself after the presentation, giving yourself positive reinforcement, like really appreciating your effort, because sometimes people punish themselves after the performance, right? Or they're speaking publicly and they're like, oh my God, I haven't said that. Oh my God, I didn't do this. But it gives your brain the information about, okay, so when I speak publicly, I get the punishment after that. So I don't want to do it more, or it makes them even more stressful next time, right? But having this approach to the public speaking, like I'm gonna treat myself after the presentation. I'll drink a cup of good tea. I'll take a walk, 10-minute walk. One of the exercises I use is like prepare your treat sheet. right? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 25 minutes, or like one day. So you can truly find the things in your menu card to choose from and say, okay, I'm going to treat myself this way today because I performed. I did something that was not in my comfort zone at all, but I've tried. And I need to be proud of it. So just after the presentation tip.
I love that. And we will go back to that question, but now you opened a whole new thing that I want to first refer to, because you mentioned what to do after the presentation, but what to do before the presentation other than those techniques that we had. How do you prepare for public speaking?
Oh, such a broad topic. I definitely do the physical warm up. I use some tools from acting world that really help me relax my body. I do the oral apparatus warm up when I know that I'm going to perform for 500 kids. I need to ensure that I have my oral apparatus ready to go. So I warm up my oral apparatus. It's all from acting industry. Every actor I know have the warm up. Every actor, maybe some, super actors not, but every actor has the warm up. And then what I do when I have some time, but not right before the presentation, but maybe the morning before the presentation or the evening before the presentation, I go through it. And sometimes when I have a presentation, when I need to explain something, I explain it to my husband at home to just practice that. And I truly believe in preparation. I like to have bullet points. I like to have slides. I like to have things to follow. And practicing small chunks of text way before your presentation, way before it happens, because your brain needs some time to adjust to this information, to really suck it in. So that's why I don't recommend working on the script and everything right before the day, like right before the presentation, the day before the presentation, because your brain will not be capable of, really accepting all of the information. You need to start way before, like a week before, and like practicing small chunks of your script. So if the day comes, you're ready to go, because you don't have to focus on the text itself. You can focus on the delivery, reading the room, having the connection with your audience. So that's what I do. I prepare for every presentation this way. And then when I have my oral apparatus ready to go, my voice ready to go, I use vocal warm ups too. When I have my body ready to go, when I take some time to breathe, to relax, to remember what's my why behind it. Why am I going on stage? What do I want to give to my audience? What's my priority for today? Then it just works for me. And I can truly connect with the audience, and it really releases the tension.
So what if you were in corporate environment and you had like 24 hours before a presentation that somebody told you to do, to replace a colleague? How would you prepare for that?
Yeah, I had the situation actually 2 days ago, but again, I know the framework. So my boss was like, Diana, you have a new presentation. Be ready. I know that you want to have it in advance usually, but we don't have room for that. I'm late, so I'm going to send you the presentation right now. I was like, okay. So I went through the presentation. I prepared. I did my best, and I was open to make mistakes because it's, again, my first presentation. And surprisingly, I make a lot of mistakes. So what I try to do, I do my best. If I have some time, I'll use this time. If I don't have time, I'll do my best to do whatever I can to take care of myself. Again, getting back to taking care of yourself. Maybe you don't need to practice your script, but you need to have a space that is, making you feel grounded. Maybe it's an object you need to have on your table when you're presenting online that makes you feel grounded. Maybe it's just the meditation. Maybe it's a workout in the morning. Maybe you don't have so much time to prepare, but maybe there are things you need to do to really feel grounded and connected to yourself. It's very personal question.
I think it's also the topic, and it doesn't have to be this strict, thesis. It can literally be a story from your experience. It can be an example, etc. And I've also noticed with bilingual speakers, multilingual speakers, that to me it was like I was scared. What if I forget the words? We're talking and I'm on a sales call and I'm talking to a potential client and I can't remember a word. And I did this with the client, and this is so embarrassing, but it's also so funny. So we were just talking about something, and I was trying to illustrate a picture and I couldn't remember the word window. So I literally said, the hole in the wall through which you look at things. And the person was like, a window. And I was like, yes. And then we all laughed and continued. And it didn't affect the sale. It didn't affect the project. Everybody just like, it was silly. So how do you kind of cope with that? Especially, um, your English is perfect. You are living there, you moved, but how did you cope with all those situations where you don't remember any words that you should? Polish language structure is much more different than English. So is
Yeah.
Croatian. So sometimes my sentences completely are backwards. If I try to speak in Croatian logic, then it's not a normal sentence to an native English speaker. So how did you overcome that basically?
I love your story. And again, it's authenticity, right? And mm, yeah, it gets people together. There's such a beautiful connection there in this story. So that's what I would recommend actually. When I don't know the word, I go around. And I remember my mom sharing a story with me. She went to Turkey and she has no idea about English. Like she can't speak English. She can speak Russian a little bit, but she used to learn at school. So she doesn't remember anything. And she told me that she asked a guy at the store to replace, and she bought her SIM card and asked the guy in the salon to replace it, and he did it. And I was like, Mom, you can't speak English, right? And she's like, No, of course not. You can't speak Russian because you used to study it at school, so you don't remember anything. And she goes, No, of course not. Like, how did you explain and bought a SIM card in a store with no English, no Russian, and nothing? And she's like, Yeah, sure. Just showed him. I used my body language, and he understood everything.
I love that
So
story.
we have more tools than we know we have. It's
Yeah.
about energy. It's about body language. And we can use it and nobody cares. I was like, at the beginning of my stay in the US, I was like, I need to speak perfectly. I need to be just on the top. And then I realized nobody cares because people understand that you have two languages on your plate right now, not only one. And sometimes because I work in English, I coach in English mostly. When I work with people who are Polish and I have some Polish clients, it's sometimes very hard for me to really translate it. So I use English words instead of Polish words, which is kind of embarrassing. It was kind of embarrassing for me at the beginning, but now I'm like, look, I work in English most of the time, so that's totally normal to use English words when I explain something, right? And some
Yeah.
of the things I learned were only in English, and I don't know the Polish translation. So that's how it works.
Yeah, and I think that, if I'm working with somebody who does the same, I'm not judging them actually ever. Literally, I just help them, or I, explain the word or anything like that. So I think the exercise that you said in the beginning of the podcast related to that imposter syndrome, inner imposter, basically the potato, your potato, is like true there, because we think the worst for ourselves. And then when it comes to other people, we're going to be empathetic, we're going to be kind, we're going to give them grace, we're going to help them. And then we assume for ourselves that people won't. And that's really sad. And until you start working on it and you start like thinking about it, you don't even realize how you're actually the rudest person to yourself. So I remember I was so afraid, what will somebody say? And then I realized I say the worst things to myself, and I should start from that. So I think that comes back to the gist of it basically. So it ties into that question about the workshops, and your clients currently, and from March to now, how did you measure progress basically, and what is progress in this situation? Is it them going on stage? Is it them starting a podcast? Like what happens after they work with you?
That's so beautiful. I love this question. So I had like two big group workshops. I've had a couple of individual clients. And what I've heard so far, you can check out my reviews on Google Business. You can check it out. But the biggest and most important and the most beautiful thing they say is they just trust themselves and they stop being hard on themselves. And one of my clients said that she was using the breathing exercises. She was using the stress release and body exercises before her presentation, and it worked out. She is in Toastmasters, and she could tell that it was like huge difference between not warming up and not preparing herself for speaking and preparing herself for speaking. I can see even after one session a huge improvement, because what I do in the first session, I people like come up with their speech, and they do it, they perform it, then we have the warm up tools, and then they perform one more time. You can see a huge difference in the way they're talking, in the way they're moving. So that's the best thing. They feel more confident, they feel empowered. I used to work with a startup founder, Chris, and Chris said that the other day he was so terrified of presenting his idea that he was like, he couldn't express his idea freely. And now when he's in the meetings, he's just talking about it with, being proud, just being super confident about his idea. And people are like, wow, that's an amazing story. But at the beginning of our work, he was like, Diana, I think my voice is boring. I think my, like, just people don't like my voice. I couldn't say that. Like, I didn't understand, because when I was talking to him, I had no idea why he thought that, because his voice was totally normal. He was very interesting to talk to him. And yeah, again, having the confidence, having the power, having the feeling that it's okay to make mistakes, but the most important part is just trying and gaining the skill. And the other day, I ran a workshop for Polish professional women in in Silicon Valley, and one of the members of the group, she came up to me after the public speaking workshop, and she was like, Diana, I want to start working on my YouTube channel. You motivated me. I was so scared, and I want to try. I'm like, yeah, let's work on it. Let's do it. And we're going to start working in January, one on one. So again, it brings people motivation and gives them power to start and to, to to acquire whatever they want to acquire, to just follow their dreams. And that's the best part of this job. And I used to train a lady from Google, and she told me that she was so nervous that she was breaking the pens before the presentation or during the presentation, because it was so nerve wracking. So we focused on the releasing exercises, the breathing exercises, the mindfulness, right? And she uses these tools to she makes her space. She wants to feel safe in the space. So I know she needs a lot of things to just really release the tension before the presentation. So again, giving people power to chase your dreams. That's the best of the best things you can see as a public speaking coach, when people are, you're just the wind for their wings. And
I
that's
love
fascinating.
that because that gives you purpose and it propels you forward with continuing this because it actually helps people, gives them huge value. It's not just some service that we created a table, take the table. You're really giving them their confidence back, and I love that. I want to go back to the startup founder because while he's not a surgeon, if he makes a mistake, he could lose investors. So we have that group of people that you said you started working with. So how do you help people who basically, and if let's try to speak to the startup founders who might be listening, like where do they start before they even work with somebody like you, or when they work with you? Because if they make a mistake, they can lose a sale, they can lose an investor, they can, their team won't have a paycheck next month. How do you help them when there's risk involved there?
So when they don't work on their public speaking and they perform, they can lose the sale. When they work on their public speaking, they can perform and they can lose the sale, of course, or they have bigger chances of winning the sale, right? So it's, again, I'm not a magician. I can't make them succeed every time, but I can give them tools to work on to make it better for them, because the outcome of the end of the day, it's not always only about your pitch. It's about the investor's needs. It's about their field. Some investors are more interested in AI right now. Some investors are interested in, I don't know, automotive field, right? So at the end of the day, it's not always about your product. It can be about your personal preferences, right? But what I can control and what I can give people is feeling confident on stage, is feeling authentic on stage, is speaking with impact, is delivering the idea in a way that is appealing to people, that people want to listen to them. So I cannot close the deals for them, but I can give them tools to make it better and to make it so they can feel better on stage presenting. So it's not that nerve wracking. So they know what they can prepare. So we can work on their pitch and the storytelling and again the psychological aspect and the body and their stress release. So we can work on it so they feel more confident. But again, at the end of the day, I'm not a magician. I can't close deals for them.
For sure. Same as with consultants. We can only help. We can be, there to guide, but we can't guarantee any results. But I do feel that when you do apply it properly, you will get the results. It doesn't have to be that investor, but it can be another investor. But like you said, you don't know the external circumstances of why somebody says yes or no in any of those scenarios. And I do believe that working on the public speaking also helps you with tough conversations as an entrepreneur inside of your team with other with clients, with everybody else, and then to show up on social media at the end of the day. I remember it took me 2+ years to start this podcast. Now it feels like this space where I'm just happy. It's a hobby, so it really takes some time to get to that courage. But took me 2+ years. If I worked with somebody like you, probably would take me a month, to be honest, because everything that took me a while to figure out, like, this is a limiting belief, this is not true, this is just fear, try this, try that, be a guest first somewhere, talk to other entrepreneurs, figure out, ask other podcasters about their experience. And that broke my belief that it has to be perfect equipment, studio level editing. No, it really can start like this. So what do you have as sort of a, I would say, like, 10-step checklist that you can apply, whether you're moving to another country, whether you're starting a business, whether you have a presentation to
Oh,
an
those
investor?
are different things.
Well, I think there can be
One.
a pattern. I am trying to kind of challenge you related to self-esteem, if that makes sense. What would you put on that list? Is there some things that are, you know, belong in the same bucket there?
Mhm. So take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't judge yourself too much. It will not help you. Listen to people's feedback, but in a way that makes you grow, not holds you back and puts you down. So choose the people to listen to who are giving you great feedback, which means that it doesn't have to be, oh wow, you did great, but it can be, I would improve this and that because, and having a good explanation, but it's a piece of information that makes you grow, right? I would say try. If you fail, you fail, but you'll learn from it. And if you even don't try, you will not learn anything. You're just stuck, right? So that would be the third thing that applies to all of these journeys. Um, what else? And have a great people around you. My husband is lovely. He helped me a lot. He even bought me a book. It's okay to not to be okay. When he
Oh,
was
I have that on my shelf behind me.
so I remember reading this book and be like, okay, maybe I need some help. So he bought me a book. He was very supportive. Then I met my friend at City College. She's lovely. She moved to the US more or less the same time as I did, and she's helping me a lot. So being surrounded by people who are the wind for your wings is very, very important. And yeah, I would encourage attending, networking events at the beginning when you move to another country, attending, some kind of workshops so you can meet other people, because it's much easier to do it when to step up to your comfort zone if you're surrounded by people that keep fingers crossed for you. So these three things. And again, taking your time, being patient. I'm super impatient, like impatient. My patience level is zero. So I needed to learn that everything takes time. You're not going to be perfect right away, but you're going to be getting there step by step.
I love that. I think it applies to entrepreneurship also. Go to networking events, meet people. That's how we met, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And one last thing about the business, I mentioned that I'm not patient at all. So when I started the business in March with my co-founder, we were like, okay, now we know that our tools work, right? Now we have the experience, so we're gonna sell the ticket. Um, we're gonna sell the tickets for our first paid event. We just need to register our business. So we registered our business. We created the event, and we sold one ticket.
Had a feeling that that's coming.
It was devastating.
Yeah.
It was devastating. It was like, hey, people liked our workshops. We've tested it. So why not buying our tickets and our workshops? Like, what's wrong with you people? And then I realized that there's so many different factors you need to be aware of when you're a business owner. It's not only about selling your workshop or selling your product, especially if you're a coach. You need to build the trust first.
Yeah.
First, you need to get the network and people to buy your ticket. I had zero network when we launched this first event, so people just didn't know who we were because we were not super visible on social media too. And we started marketing 2 weeks before the event, so like it's not enough time, especially if you don't have the network, right? We didn't know the channels. We didn't have the target audience. Right now, I really want to work with startup founders, so I'm running the interviews right now and customer development interviews to really understand the need and their reality. But before that, we were like, okay, we're gonna sell the workshop that works for people who are afraid of public speaking. But if you market to everybody, you don't market to
Yep.
anyone. So that was one of the biggest lesson for me as a business owner. And it's been a year since we started thinking about it. So we started thinking about it last November or something like that. And I was like, of course, I mean, super impatient. So I was like, damn, it's been a year. I don't have like a super stable income out of my business. I still can't quit my daily job because I registered in March. We don't have like a stable flow of clients right now. And then I started talking to people, and people were like, Diana, it's been a couple of months since you started, and it takes much more time.
Yep.
As long as you don't have like a crazy debt on you,
Yep.
you're good.
Yeah. I think the kind of average 5 years until you're fully profitable. That doesn't mean you won't quit your day job soon. Hopefully your boss is not going to listen to this, but i I feel I'm the same. And I always remember there's this like saying, it's from this movie, I don't even remember the origin, but like, if you build it they will come. You build it and nobody comes, and you're like, oh my god, I made this like huge thing and nobody knows about it. And then you realize you have to build the audience much longer than before you launch something. Not You're not gonna build the audience just to launch something at them, but basically they gotta know you. You gotta provide value. And having a business is like, I always say to my team, it's like we're building a house while we're living inside of it, and like the lower floor is being built while we are living on the upper floor without like windows or doors or anything like that. And the kitchen has a kettle, and then the bathroom is not working. And how can you build 5 floors at the same time? And the roof, it's physically impossible. So I feel like having a business is like that. You literally have to smile. First day you have to seem like you have it all together, and you just started. Where's the brand kit? Where's the where are we archiving things? What's our file naming convention? How do we conduct meetings? How do we reach leads? It's so many things. And then the doubt creeps in, and then if you don't get income fast enough, then you're like, what am I doing? And then everybody could be around you saying, oh my god, you should get a job or this or that. It's really, I feel, the more you persevere, just like in public speaking, the more you're like, after now 8 years almost, my my philosophy is like, I've lived through worse. And I'm just not even scared anymore about some certain things that would really put me in tears, early on, if that makes sense. So it's all normal, and you just need more people to tell you that it's normal. And I feel like people don't speak about that. Everybody shows up on LinkedIn and here's me, I'm perfect, look at the Instagram and all of that. And like, I want to hear about failures. I want to hear about real stories, about, sharing stuff. I think that helps more than pretending you're perfect. And I would definitely trust somebody more if I knew they failed at something. Then that's it. I just learned it theoretically and now I'm talking about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I used to work as an actor for many years. Now I have some idea, but I had no idea about business. And it's so complex. So how about just taking my time to learn it? How
Yep.
about just being okay with not knowing things? I know
Yep.
a lot about public speaking. You can tell, right? I know a
Yep.
lot about the journey I've went through as a public speaking coach, as a public speaker. But the business aspect is a different story. So just accepting it, I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I still need to learn a lot of things, taking classes, and then sooner or later it will pay off.
I do feel it would be boring if it's not like that. When I get to a point with my company where I'm completely unnecessary, fully, 100%, then I would just create a new company from scratch with something else just to have that building journey, if that makes sense. I do feel that this is gonna be so cliche, but like I do feel it's about the journey. It's not about the destination because everything happens, the day is so fun and things are so different. And honestly, even when it's really bad and when it's really good, I am so excited to get up because I have my business. And it's just, I think it really has to be aligned with your purpose, just like yours is, because then you have this like a feeling like, oh, I can tweak this, I can do that. And even when it's really bad and there are no sales and everything, you feel like you should quit and everything like that, you have this luxury to sit down and be like, okay, let's refine the offer, let's offer something else, let's see what else I know, let's partner with somebody, let's talk to people, let's figure this out. And when you do figure it out, it's the best feeling ever, unbeatable, because then you are reliant on yourself and you don't have to, wait for somebody to either give you a raise or ask for a holiday, 3 days and anything like that. I don't mind that. I'm just not that type, if that makes sense. And I always believe if I do have to go to work for somebody else, I think I would be a great employee because I would understand what it takes, to run a company, basically. So I would be much more understanding, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's like taking control over your life, and that's very fascinating part. But the hardest part for me is that my biggest passion is working with people, coaching people, being with people in the room or online. And right now, on a daily basis, I have tons of different tasks I need to take care of, which is not that exciting. So I'm still learning, just being patient and okay with that part, because sometimes I'm just not capable of, working with people only, but I need to
Yep.
work on the marketing. I need to go to the networking events, which is great because I can meet people there. But again, it's working on the website, creating graphics, creating reels, editing reels, tons of work. So
Administrative stuff.
yeah, and at the beginning, not everyone can afford having people to do their marketing for
Yes.
them, to do their website, to do whatever. Of course, we need to hire like a person that worked on our logo and like the branding a little bit, so we have the starting point, right? But at some point, at some point, I'm gonna hire people to do it. But especially at the beginning, it's almost impossible.
Yep.
So I'm waiting for this moment when I'll have a person that takes care of the marketing. So I'll have a person that takes care of I know that the technical aspect of the business, so I can truly focus on running the workshops because I'm super good about it, super good in it. And my biggest dream is just to focus on this aspect of the business.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen like soon, but I keep my fingers crossed for that.
For sure. And there are ways to, get that even without hiring. Of course, for, website and all of that, you do have to have somebody that's capable of doing that. But there's automation, there's software now, there's tons of things that can help with that. And yeah, I really if I go into that, that's my specialty. So I'm not gonna, take over the podcast with that. But there's hope for those things because we're in an era where you have no code tools that can actually help you as a solopreneur or somebody who has a co-founder, so like a small team, where when you don't need to learn all of those things, as skills, separate skills. I remember in 2018 when I just started, I still had to learn WordPress and like make my own website and all of that. And now there are so many tools. You just drag and drop a website or AI generates it or anything like that. And it can be really good until you can afford somebody else to do it for you. I really think that in 2025 coming to 2026 we literally have that benefit there. The problem is just how do you start, because that's also a skill by itself. Like, which software do I choose, what do I do, what do I need for that to happen? That's also a huge problem.
Yes, definitely. And I remember creating my website on Tilda, and I had to learn the
Yep.
framework. I needed to just do my homework and study it so I can build the first website. And right now we have our first website. Of course, I think I'm gonna need some help to refining it at the beginning of next year because I have a great idea for a program for startup founders. And we are going to probably go with this target audience and see how it works. But yeah, at the beginning of your business, you don't necessarily know who's your target audience. You want to try many different things. That's why I work with so many people, so many different people from so many industries, right? Because I wanted to figure it out who I want to work with,
Yep.
right? And again, it's amazing to have a co-founder. Yulia, she's right now on the maternity leave, which is heartbreaking for me at the same time because she's not fully engaged because she has a two-month old baby. But again, it's nice to have someone who can hold your back and
Yep.
say and tap your back and say, Diana, great job. Diana, great work. Because we were doing it together at the end of the day, which is
Yep.
very, very good.
And it's same energy, same understanding. It's much easier, I would say, on the self-esteem and everything. But I also want to say that because you created your website and all of that, what I've encountered is that then when you do start hiring and you have a team, then it's easier to delegate. It's easier to understand what they're actually doing and how to set up the workload, how to get the best out of them, because now you already know at least the basics, and you are able to describe to that agency that you later on hire what you actually want because you tested it, if that makes sense. So I think it all has its own kind of like a reason, and it makes us better business people. But what I've learned is that people do really get kind of disappointed when they get into this, and then they realize the thing I wanted to do the most is the thing I can do the least, because in order for this to be a business, I really have to do all of this boring stuff. So I relate to that, and that's my mission to kind of change. I really want business owners to be able to do what they're passionate about. Yeah.
And it takes time.
Yeah. It's also a journey of self-discovery. So, yeah, it all goes hand in hand, and yeah. So we went into this philosophical, it kind of felt like we're alone drinking coffee, to be honest, the last 30 minutes especially. So I want to bring us back to the audience, if that makes sense. I do love what we talked about, and I think that this is also a great message for them. But how can they find you, how can they work with you, and how can you help them?
So there is a couple of things. They can find me on LinkedIn, Diana Bukowska. Laura, you're probably sure there will link, right? Later on or
Yes,
something.
everything will be in the description.
So there is the LinkedIn, there is the website. People can just schedule 30-minute talk with me to get to know more about my program, and that's how we start. It's usually, as I mentioned before, an interview, 20 to 30-minute interview about the needs. If it's one-on-one coaching, if it's a group program, I just need to know more about the group. So people who have like teams who will be willing to work on their public speaking, they just contact me. Again, 30-minute talk so we can really understand each other's needs. And then I'll be creating more group events starting next year. So if you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram of the Limelight Hub or on YouTube, you can just look at the things we're doing, and I'll let you know when I'm opening this workshop in January.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you for the conversation. I think it was really powerful and interesting. We'll see what the audience says because I think they're going to love it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was a huge, huge pleasure to be here. And for everyone that are listening or watching us, I keep my fingers crossed for you, for your endeavors, for your public speaking. Remember, it just takes time. It's a process. So do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself and go for it.
Thank you so much. And to the audience that's listening to us, I really think that this conversation was such a powerful reminder that confidence isn't an accident, it's also a system. Because we were talking a lot about systems, I really think that with everything that Diana mentioned, that you can start working on that and getting back to believing in yourself and realizing what is actually taking you back, keeping you from successful public speaking in a way. So, if you want to learn more about Diana, you can follow her on LinkedIn, just like she mentioned, or you can explore the workshops to develop stronger communication skills. We'll link everything in the podcast description. And as always, thank you for listening to Systems with Laura. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who wants to build better systems in their business or personal growth. Until next time, keep designing systems that support your work. If you enjoy conversations like this, you'll love the Proprium Digital Network. It's a community where digital service founders get tools, templates, weekly insights, and behind the scenes guidance on building systems the right way. If you want to stop building systems alone and start building with support, join us at proprium.agency.